So we get this question a lot. What is the difference between these M6 drivers, these brand new ones, and everything that's new from every OEM, and the older models that preceded it, like this M1? So there's some significant design differences in these, and let's go ahead and talk about why this M6, at least as far as tech, has become such a superior driver to this M1. So first, when you start taking a look at it, you've got some noticeable differences. First one would be there's much more carbon or graphite on the M6, which we'll talk about here in a second, what the benefits are there. And then even on the sole, you've got more carbon again, or more of the graphite on the M6. This should help you swing the club faster and make the club lighter in certain areas. Now, the part that sometimes gets misunderstood is why the shape of the soles are different. So let's talk a touch about that one here. So I've got this M6 driver with this inertia generator, almost like a little rudder that sits on the back of it. Let's talk about why that thing is so useful here. So you've got your club shaft down to the hosel. We'll get to that here in a second. Club face, and then the design of a typical golf club looks something like that. So you've got your shaft, you got your hosel in here, and then a lot of these clubs now have this carbon fiber onto it, so drawing even like the crown of this golf club, something like that. It's a ton of carbon also on the bottom, so we'll just keep in mind how much of that sits down in the bottom of the club here as well. Both of those are really helping with a lot of weight savings, but let's talk about that here in a second. First one, though, is that the center of gravity on most golf clubs that don't have a lot of tech in them, especially old stuff you might grab out of your garage, is the CG of the club sits right about here, pretty close to the middle, and then that sits very much in line with the center of the club face. Okay, little problem, though. Anytime I hit a golf ball there, I'm going to get a lot of ball speed, but I also get some very unforgiving golf clubs. So what a lot of the OEMs try to do is move the center of gravity back. That adds a ton of forgiveness to the golf club, but it comes with a whole new problem. So I'll draw that one here just as an example. A little circle, a little line through it. It's like a typical guide of how that should look. Here's the complexity of golf club design, though. The angle that this actually matters on is not horizontal like this. It's not exactly through the center of the golf club that runs through the center of the face. It's actually a right angle to the face angle. So anytime you're up here on a golf club, your driver has about 10 degrees of loft or so. So the 10-degree loft-centered strike looks something like this. This is the angle we're going to keep in mind. A really well-designed golf club might have this going through the center of that, might not. This is the simple way of viewing golf. Now, if I take this center of gravity, transcribe that on the club face, it would be right there. Now, anything below that, down here, or let's just start there. Anything hit below that. So if I hit a golf ball right here on this part of the golf club, I'll hit that and it'll have a lot of backspin. Those are the shots that spin a lot, land very softly, not a very good way to hit a driver. And most people know that when you hit that shot on the bottom, how much more that spins. Conversely, if I hit anything above that point, anything up here, I'll have much less backspin. Still has backspin, but a lot less of it. Those go really far, land on the ground, roll a long way. Next problem, though, as we just described here, is that this is our brand new CG. It's our center of gravity. We made the golf club more forgiving by bringing it back. That's where a lot of the companies, especially even in these older ones, have a weight that allows you to move this ball backward, or move that screw backward. That's really helpful in adding a bunch of weight, moving the center of gravity back. Now, remembering our earlier concept, though, that the loft is actually the piece that we need to watch for the forgiveness. This is how this new driver with a center of gravity that's moved backwards is going to perform. Where I'm drawing this arrow right now, this is your new center of gravity transcribed on the face. So now if I hit anything above that, I get this reduced spin, and anything that's below that, which you might notice is a whole lot more of the golf club than it was when it was up here, now spins a lot more. So this doesn't work very well. This is a bad way to design a golf club if you want to hit it really far. It might be a great way if you want to hit the ball straight, though. So let's do this the opposite way. And this is where the inertia generator and this little rudder down here that you see, how significant that's become in this design from TaylorMade. So what they're doing is putting a ton of weight, about 46 grams, right down here in the bottom of this golf club. 46 grams, leave it at that. Okay, now what that's done is it brings the CG back like you wanted it for forgiveness, but it's also bringing this thing down. So while I'm not able to draw these to scale, you should be able to start grasping this concept a little better. It isn't the easiest one to get a hold of, but hopefully this is helping you understand it. Again, the line of force that we're looking at is perpendicular to the club face angle. So my 10-degree driver is still drawn on that same line. And something like this is actually where the center of gravity is on your M6 compared to your standard driver. And then also if you have one that is, I'm just going to use this fancy term of way back center of gravity. So far, when you draw this center of gravity low and back, as opposed to higher and close to the face, or higher and further back, now you have the center of gravity acting on the shots differently. Any shot that I hit below this point has the high spin effect. Anything that I hit above that, all the way up to the top, a huge area, much bigger, has the low spin effect, or when you hit a shot just barely high off the club face and the ball launches high but doesn't spin as much. That's really the best way to try to hit a driver, slightly higher and ever so slightly favoring the toe. If you are someone who slices the ball, that's not a bad way to play. If you draw, though, that may not be exactly the spot you want. Point of all of this one is to show that there's a big difference in how you move around the weight that's inside of this club head to help you do that. The advantage of all of this graphite and composite up here is interesting too. That's what enables TaylorMade and Callaway and other vendors who try to make this. Gives them the chance of moving weight from that graphite part of their head and sliding that down into this 46 gram weight that's really close down there at the bottom. Now it's not always without issues too. So the first few attempts at trying to put graphite on top of this were problematic. The real issue here is that I suggest that having graphite on the top gives you the chance to move weight down at the bottom. The unfortunate part of that is that something has to make this graphite stick to the metal, stick to the titanium face. And the way that we use that right now is glue. So this glue, which has a weight as well, has to be put onto this golf club to help you hold down the graphite head as well. To do that, that adds a lot of weight. So if you add 20, 30, 40 grams worth of glue to help mold the carbon fiber to the titanium club face, you can negate all of this and make it just a total disaster. So that is why the graphite itself and the composite crown has been interesting to see over time, especially even looking at TaylorMade, how much more they're actually able to put into the M6 than the M1, especially in the bottom. So all these unique features are interesting, but they all come without a little bit of an education about why they're better. It's really easy to grab a club and just say, wow, this looks different. I promise you, if you're using a club that's a few years old, you're missing out on some tech that could be costing you some distance. We're seeing 20-yard distance gains between M1 drivers and M5s and M6s all the time, regularly. So if you're one of the many people who wants more distance, getting fit by a professional coach who knows what they're doing with these cool toys can be the simplest, fastest, and really an inexpensive way to get you 20 yards. So that's the importance of getting fit by an expert. So if you like this content, you want to see a lot more of it, especially some detail about how these clubs are put together, follow us on social media.